What if the next Samsung update doesn't try to impress you at all? No loud features, no flashy promises, just a phone that quietly feels better every single day. That's the kind of update One UI 8.5 is shaping up to be. Hey guys, welcome back to Tech Gadget. If you're someone who actually cares about how technology fits into real life, not just specs on paper, then today's video is for you. We're talking about One UI 8.5, Samsung's upcoming software update. And just to be clear, it's not officially launched yet. But the direction Samsung is taking with this update is already interesting enough to talk about. Because One UI 8.5 doesn't feel like Samsung trying to reinvent the wheel. It feels like Samsung finally refining it. From the moment you interact with the phone, something feels calmer. The UI doesn't rush to show off. Animations don't jump aggressively. They move with purpose. When you swipe, the screen responds like it's connected to your finger, not racing ahead or lagging behind. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unfeel it. This update focuses heavily on how the phone behaves, not just what it can do. The lock screen is a perfect example. Instead of being a simple wall of notifications, it feels more thoughtful. Notifications that matter to you appear more clearly. Ones you usually ignore feel visually lighter. The clock adjusts itself better against wallpapers so you're never squinting to check the time. Even the always-on display feels more aware, gently adapting brightness based on how and when you usually look at your phone. Unlock the device, and the home screen feels warmer. Icons appear slightly softer, more rounded, more friendly. It's not cartoonish. It's refined. There's a sense of depth, like the UI has layers instead of being flat and lifeless. Tapping an app gives you tiny visual feedback that makes the phone feel responsive without being flashy. The quick panel also feels more alive. At first glance it looks cleaner. But over time, you realize it adapts. Toggles you use often feel easier to reach. Controls expand when needed and stay compact when not. It's like the panel learns your habits quietly, without forcing you to customize anything manually. One UI 8.5 also leans heavily into learning how you use your phone. Apps you open every morning start opening faster. Apps you barely touch stop demanding resources. The keyboard becomes less annoying. Fewer wrong corrections, more accurate predictions that actually sound like something you would say. Multitasking feels smoother too. Split screen doesn't feel like a compromise anymore. The phone intelligently balances space between apps instead of treating both equally all the time. Floating windows move naturally, and switching between tasks doesn't punish you with reloads or lost progress. What's interesting is how invisible all of this is. Samsung isn't throwing pop-up saying, "New feature," every 5 minutes. You just start realizing that you're doing more with fewer taps. You're less frustrated. You're not adjusting settings all the time. Battery behavior improves not by slowing things down, but by being smarter. Heat management feels predictive. Charging adapts to your routine instead of forcing a one-size-fits-all approach. And that's really the theme of One UI 8.5 so far. Balance. Not faster just for the sake of it. Not smarter in a creepy way. Just smoother, calmer, and more personal. This update isn't trying to change how you use your phone. It's trying to fit into how you already live. And this is just the beginning. As you spend more time with One UI 8.5, you start realizing that this update isn't obsessed with speed in the traditional sense. It's obsessed with timing. Things happen exactly when your brain expects them to. The phone doesn't try to predict you aggressively. It waits, watches, and then gently adjusts. Take everyday actions like opening the camera. In earlier versions the camera app was fast, sure, but sometimes it felt rushed. In One UI 8.5 it feels prepared. The shutter responds instantly, but the processing afterward feels smarter. Motion is handled better, especially with people. Faces don't get over-smoothed. Skin tones look more natural. Low, light photos don't try to turn night into day. They keep the mood while still giving you usable detail. What really changes is how editing feels. Instead of overwhelming you with tools, the system quietly suggests improvements that actually make sense. Remove distractions, clean reflections, balance lighting. All without turning the image into something fake. It feels less like AI editing, and more like gentle assistance. Then there's how the phone behaves during long days. One UI 8.5 seems to understand when you're actively using your phone and when it should step back. If you're scrolling, switching apps, replying to messages, everything stays fluid. But the moment you put the phone down, background activity calms itself. Apps stop waking up unnecessarily. Notifications arrive cleaner and more organized instead of flooding your screen. Samsung's system intelligence also shows up in small moments. For example, notifications are grouped in a way that feels logical instead of random. Important conversations stay visible. Promotional noise slowly fades into the background. It's not blocking anything. It's prioritizing intelligently. The keyboard experience deserves special mention. Typing feels more relaxed. Predictions are less robotic. It stops forcing grammar where you don't want it. If you type casually, it adapts. If you type formally, it respects that too. Over time, replies start sounding more like you, not like a generic template. One UI 8.5 also improves how the phone feels during longer sessions, watching videos, reading articles, or gaming. Eye comfort features feel more refined. The display adjusts subtly without sudden color shifts. Audio balance feels cleaner, especially when switching between speakers and earbuds. And then there's multitasking. One of Samsung's biggest strengths. In this version, multitasking doesn't interrupt your flow. Apps stay exactly where you left them. Switching between tasks feels continuous, not fragmented. You don't feel punished for doing too much at once. What's impressive is how quiet all of this is. Samsung isn't shouting about these changes. There's no dramatic redesign screaming for attention. Instead, One UI 8.5 focuses on trust. You trust the phone to behave. You trust it to not waste your time. You trust it to stay out of your way when needed. And slowly, that trust changes how you feel about the device itself. You stop thinking of it as hardware. It starts feeling like a tool that understands your rhythm. This update isn't trying to win a spec battle. It's trying to win your daily routine. And once that happens, going back to older software suddenly feels harder than you expected, because comfort is addictive, and One UI 8.5 is clearly built around that idea. After a few days of living with One UI 8.5, something interesting happens. You stop testing it. You stop actively looking for new features. And that's usually the moment when good software proves itself. Because instead of pulling you out of your routine, it disappears into it. Performance in One UI 8.5 doesn't come from raw power alone. It comes from restraint. The system knows when to push and when to hold back. Heavy apps open with confidence, but they don't stay hungry in the background. Games ramp up smoothly without sudden heat spikes. Long sessions feel stable instead of aggressive. Even after hours of use, the phone doesn't feel exhausted. What makes this more impressive is how consistent it feels across the system. There are no random stutters. No sudden animation drops. No moments where the phone feels fast 1 second and confused the next. Everything flows at the same pace, which sounds boring, until you realize how rare that actually is. Customization is where One UI 8.5 quietly flexes. Samsung didn't add customization just to say it's there. They refined it. Every option feels intentional. You can change how your phone looks without breaking how it behaves. Fonts, colors, layouts, widgets, everything adapts without slowing the system down. Even small choices feel meaningful. Adjusting icon sizes, folder transparency, gesture sensitivity. These aren't just visual tweaks anymore. They affect how comfortable the phone feels in your hand, and once you dial things in your way, it's very hard to use someone else's phone without feeling slightly annoyed. One UI 8.5 also respects personal space. There's a stronger sense of separation between work and life. Notifications don't mix unnecessarily. Background apps don't overstep. Privacy features are built into the flow instead of being hidden behind complex menace. You don't feel watched. You feel protected. What's really important is how this update treats older Galaxy devices. It doesn't feel like Samsung is forcing you to upgrade hardware just to enjoy smooth software. Even on phones that aren't brand new, One UI 8.5 feels lighter, cleaner, and more optimized than before. That's a big deal, especially in a world where updates often slow things down. Over time, battery behavior becomes more predictable too. You stop checking percentage every hour. Screen on time feels consistent. Overnight drain is minimal. The phone learns your habits and quietly adjusts without asking for permission every 5 minutes. And maybe that's the biggest strength of One UI 8.5. It doesn't constantly ask for attention. It doesn't overwhelm you with pop-ups or tutorials. It trusts you to discover things naturally. This update feels mature. It feels like Samsung finally understands that great software isn't about showing off. It's about disappearing when it should and showing up only when it matters. One UI 8.5 doesn't try to impress you in the first 5 minutes. It wins you over in the next 5 days. And that's exactly the kind of software that ages well. So after all of this, after the smoother animations, the smarter performance, the subtle design changes, and the features you don't notice until you need them, the real question is simple. Does One UI 8.5 change everything? Not in a loud way. Not in a flashy, headline-grabbing way. But in the way that actually matters. It changes how your phone feels day after day. It's the kind of update that doesn't beg for attention. It earns trust. The kind where you stop thinking about software and just start using your phone without friction. No fighting the UI. No adjusting your habits to match the system. It finally adapts to you instead of the other way around. Samsung clearly didn't build One UI 8.5 for spec sheets or comparison charts. They built it for real people. People who unlock their phone hundreds of times a day. People who multitask, scroll late at night, edit photos on the go, reply to messages half asleep, and expect their phone to just work. And that's exactly what this update delivers. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels unfinished. Even the smallest details feel considered, like someone actually used the phone before shipping the software. And once you feel it, it's hard to go back. One UI 8.5 doesn't scream innovation. It whispers refinement. And honestly, that's a much harder thing to pull off. If you're already using a Galaxy device, this update feels like a reward. If you're thinking about switching, it's a reminder that software matters just as much as hardware. And if you care about long-term usability, this is the kind of update that keeps a phone feeling new long after the unboxing excitement fades. That's it for today's deep dive. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more honest, real-world tech content, make sure to like this video. It genuinely helps the channel grow. And if you don't want to miss future videos on Samsung updates, upcoming phones, and everyday tech that actually affects your life, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is Tech Gadget, where technology isn't just reviewed, it's experienced. I'll see you in the next one.